Mm-hmm.
I'm doing an extended exhale, and it's hard for me to keep doing it after I eat. So I was wondering, is it recommended to fast, or is there any tips just eat very lightly, or maybe that's just a blockage in my. It really aids digestion, I feel like. So.
It aids digestion, you said?
Yeah, I'm just pressing into my stomach.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I should just eat a lot less during retreats.
I don't know that you should eat a lot less during retreats. Perhaps you'd eat a little bit less for breakfast. So they, in Zen, maybe you know, they say that breakfast is the meal of the gods, because we feel so happy to have it. It's been so long. We fasted. We call it break fast, because you're breaking your fast since the last time you ate. So we haven't eaten for a while, and we're hungry. It's the morning. We just meditated all night because they cleared off the porch so that there was a space for us to do that. Yes? You know? There's a space there, which we've discussed many times, that it's important that there is a space. So somebody has cleared off the space of the porch so that we can sit there, and we sat for many hours, and it was effortful. As you know, this breathing exercise can be very effortful and even exhausting, and yet we get energy out of it, and so we make use of that energy, and yet our bodies remain tired, as we didn't sleep much and we've been working so hard all day long, right? And so naturally we feel grateful to have this meal offered to us. Here we eat a very luxurious meal. In the places where I trained, we didn't have breakfast like this. It was just a very light rice gruel, you know, maybe a little bit of miso, some sesame seeds on top. So it's mostly just water, but it's very, very light. But you have something, and your body feels recharged, and you feel happy. And so that's the meal of the gods, the heavenly meal, right? But you can't eat very much, you know. It's not possible to eat very much, because if you do, then this sort of thing starts happening. You're full and you're heavy. It's difficult for your body to be lithe and fluid and easy. So we don't eat too much at breakfast. But then lunch comes, and they call that the meal of the Buddha, because you can finally fill yourself up. Okay, so we have a long break here, very long. I've never been at a monastery with such a long break after lunch, but here we have a very long break after lunch, and so you can eat a lot and then take a little nap. And that's typically recommended. You eat a lot and then you take a little nap. You don't have to do it that way. I never did, but I tried it a few times. It didn't really work for me, but for many people it works really well, so it's recommended. Eat a lot, take a little nap. A short nap. Yes, half an hour or so. They say 17 minutes, but half an hour or so. And then you can get up and be awake again, and then do your various personal practices, right? So maybe you go for a walk in the woods, maybe you do Tai Chi. Who knows what it would be for each person, you know? Could be anything, right? We're all different. That's why we have that long period, so we can be creative in our own practice. But at that point, as we come back into this practice, we ate a lot, but then we rested. Yes, so you ate, but then you did a little bit of work, right? And then you rested, and so you're revitalized now. And so typically in that period you can get yourself back into it, so that by the time you're sitting again, you don't have this problem anymore. And then they say that the evening meal Yes, is the meal of the devil. So there are 3 meals of the gods, of the Buddha, and of the devil, because if you eat in the evening, there's just no hope. You're not going to possibly do a good meditation because you're going to be full. You're eating right in the middle of the evening meditation session. You're going to be drowsy. Yes, the exhortation is going to come, and you're going to be lax, and you're going to have to struggle to stay awake, right? Especially if it goes on, which it sometimes does. So it can get to be 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock sometimes. You just have to keep going. You could never do it if you ate in the evening, so you just don't. So in that way, you begin your fast, yes? Which means that in the morning, you're, again, very grateful to have food. So that's usually how it's taught. Not to just not eat. During an intensive meditation period, it's extremely rare that you would fast during the whole week, or even that you would try to eat significantly less, because you're doing just one thing here. You're trying to do this thing now. No need to try to do 2 things, adding fasting in. But if you eat appropriately within the schedule, then generally you can resolve these problems in your morning, your early morning session, a very magical time, mid-morning session, time of hard work. Yes, you want to be sure that you're completely exhausted by lunch. Then you have that, and you can revitalize yourself, a little bit of rest, rejuvenate yourself, and then enter the marathon, yes? Where you want to find a way for that full 12 hours. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? From roughly 4 to roughly 4. To just go without any breaks. That's what you're aiming for. Yes. Even if you happen to lie down and sleep a little bit during that time, you don't want to let go of the practice. Does that make sense? So in that way, you've aligned your eating with the schedule, and it should support the practice. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
But it's true that the breathing is in this way that you're doing is very good for digestion. It's true. It's also good for lung capacity. Some people are worried about lung capacity nowadays. And so it's very good to completely open the lungs. The lungs can get hard. Sometimes people don't know this about the body. The body, if you don't move it, it can become hard and stuck. And so you want to fully open the lungs with every breath, and then fully collapse the lungs with every breath. Does that make sense? You want all of the air to be out, all of the air to be in, and in this way the lungs become much more fluid, become more supple, which is what we want. It's a good thing. And that helps to give us more oxygen, so we're more alert. A lot of the time when people aren't alert, it's just because their breathing hasn't opened up their lungs yet. But that's something that takes time. You have to do it and do it and do it. So in the same way that this kind of breath helps with digestion, it also helps to massage the various organs. It also allows the lungs to open up. So it's very important, very, very important. And most people, maybe you know, meditators tend to live substantially longer than other people. Meditators and singers are the two professions, you might say, that make people live significantly longer. And most people think it's because of this. It's because of the change in the way your lungs are if you continually use this breathing. Of course, it doesn't happen with one breath or even with 100 breaths. Yes, it takes thousands, but that's like any other ordinary human activity. Yes, it's a normal thing. If you want to get good at something so that it changes your life, you usually have to do it. Anything else on that? Okay. Uh-huh.
Does it have to be like related to the practice, or maybe like the teachings in general?
Say again.
Does it have to be related to the practice or the teachings?
Does what have to be related?
The question. Can I ask a question that is related to something else?
How distant?
No, it's not very distant.
Let's try it. I'll let you know.
Okay. So like it came on my mind, and like in alchemy, there is this. Like in the past, they just used to look at the signs, or maybe mystical, but the idea of purification of metals and purification of the soul. And it was like they tended to believe that the truth of the universe was so small that it would fit an emerald, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we use this like analogy, what would be written on the emerald of Buddhism?
Oh, I see. So you're taking a number of steps here in a few sentences, right? So you spoke about alchemy and the purification of various things, and then you use that to talk about the possibility that this truth, the supreme truth, would be very simple and therefore could fit on something very small. Is that the point you're making? And then you use that to then ask, okay, so in terms of Buddhism, what would this extremely short statement be about the truth of the universe? Is that what you're asking for?
Yeah.
I don't know if the Buddha was all that interested in the truth of the universe. Actually, I don't think he would have written anything on that emerald. He would have just given it to you.
Okay.
Probably. I don't know if that was a real concern, the truth of the universe.
Maybe the truth of. So, like maybe so alchemy was concerned by this. So.
Oh, definitely.
So maybe
Alchemy is actually interesting, and you see a you see a parallel in terms of Buddhism in that both in the Indic world and if you move over a little bit to at that time, the Greek philosophers, and then in the centuries in that whole area around, yes, Europe, what we for some reason call the Middle East, and India, not so much up into China, but in that part of the world, you see a real fascination with what we think of as truth. Truth meaning what is objective reality, the truth of the universe. And so the question was, what's the shape of the universe? Does that make sense? Is it a sphere? Is it a cylinder? Is it a cone? Is it, what is it? What is the basic element of the universe, right? Is it fire? Is it air? Is it earth? Is it water? Is it some other sort of a thing? Is it infinite? Is it finite? In space or in time, right? So you have these kinds of questions which a good deal of our modern philosophical systems, science, remain infatuated with. We have a real desire to have answers to this question. And the Buddha very firmly rejected all of these questions as useless, as not worth asking, and he refused to give his own answers to these questions. Absolutely refused. Maybe you know these stories. Yes?
I read one.
Yeah, so a monk went to him, for example, and said, if you don't answer these questions about he listed these sorts of questions, then I'll leave the training. I won't train. And the Buddhist said, well, when you entered the training, did I tell you I would answer these questions? And he said, no. So then who are you arguing with right now? Yes? What is your point? And then he took it one step further and he said, even if you said, I will stand here and I won't eat until you answer, yes? Then I would let you stand there and die before answering these questions. So he said that these are useless questions. Now, the Buddha did answer questions about suffering, because he considered that to be of extreme importance, and he just didn't have time to answer other questions. Yes, he said if you, at one point he was in the woods like this, and he picked up some leaves, and he asked his disciples, "Are there more leaves on my hand, or are there more leaves in the entire forest?" What would you say if you had to compare? Which is greater?
I would objectively say the forest.
Exactly. So they said, well, of course, the forest has many more leaves than are in your hand. And he said, in the same way, what I know is far greater than what I teach. Yes, with enlightenment comes an enormous amount of knowledge, but I only teach a very small amount of it because it's only for one end. Yes, and then he said, so if I had to put something on the emerald, yes, it would be suffering and the end of suffering. And that's what he said he taught. He said, I teach one thing and one thing only: suffering and the end of suffering. Does that answer your question? And we already explored, of course, suffering before. I don't know that you were here for that.
When you talked about the bumpy road?
Yes, you were here for that? Okay, very good. Great. So you're aware that that this term suffering is subtle. The word dukkha and dukkha nirod. These are subtle words, phrases. And we don't want to, in the same way as other points, if you're going to take just a few words and use that to describe the import, the significance of everything, it's dangerous to define those words too rigidly. Because what you end up doing is trying to fit the whole universe into those words, all of our experience into those words, and that is the weakness of using words. That's the problem with words. That's not the usefulness or the benefit of words. Yes? Words should be the pointer to open us up into experience, not the thing that closes experience down into a little concept. Okay? So it's very important that when we consider what suffering, we don't think, well, this is my idea of suffering, so I will now try to fit everything into that idea. That's the opposite of wisdom. That's delusion. That's ignorance. That's insanity. Yes? It isn't merely wrong, incorrect. It's actually bad and harmful. Okay? It's a problem. So that's the problem with words. Okay? Instead of that, we want to use the word. So he said suffering and the end of suffering. And then we should ask, here's this person who's supposed to be pretty wise. Why would you say that? What is the thing that those words are referring to? What could that be? And then you use the words to open up out into the universe, into experience, rather than try to close the universe and experience down into that little tiny idea. Yes? So in that way you might say you have this beautiful emerald and you could write something on it. But that's because that emerald ought to contain the entire universe. Right? Not because you try to smash the universe into that concept. No. This is the basic issue with the human mind. We continually become confused and forget that we do this practice so that we can open up and escape from this limited mind. And instead we, due to our ego, we think we ought to fit the whole world into our minds. Yes, we have a little concept, we want to fit everything into the concept. Instead of that, we have this concept, and so we discover how to open up out of the concept. Yes? In the one case, it's suffering. In the other case, it's the end of suffering. And therefore, the Buddha taught suffering and the end of suffering. Yes?
This is a bit more practical question. This morning and yesterday morning, I found myself like fighting my body because it wants to go to sleep, and I can't seem to escape that. I'm kind of wondering how to deal with that or what to do.
Yeah, great. Well, this is actually the kind of question that I enjoy. So thank you for making it practical and straightforward. The more philosophical questions are helpful, and in this group we look at them because it's helpful to have that background. In that group, if someone asked a question like this, I would just yell at them and tell them that they probably shouldn't be here at all. So here, it's good for us to, examine these philosophical issues. It's helpful, but it's very exciting when we can ask questions like, so I get drowsy and I don't know what to do, right? So if I'm not mistaken, the salient point in your question wasn't mere drowsiness, nor was it mere not knowing what to do. It was this point of fighting. Is that correct?
Yes, all of those, but mostly like this kind of feeling like I'm at like a war with my body.
Yeah, excellent. Very good. So it's good that you bring this up. Different people have different experiences of drowsiness, and this is one of them, so let's look at that. So the first thing I'd say is fight the war. Right? Why not? Do it. Fight the good fight. Yeah? We fight a lot of things in life. Why not drowsiness? So fight it. Just fight. Yes, with everything you have. It's good. But throw yourself into something once in a while. So here you are, you get drowsy, just fight it. Okay? That's one strategy. And it's a good one. So no need to fight against fighting. Instead, just fight. Yes? Do it. Give it a try. See what happens. So that's the first thing. It's fulfilling. It's satisfying, It's fun. Did you know that? People don't have fights, and so they come up with video games in which they are allowed to fight. Well, good news, you can just fight. Yes? You watch movies about fighting because we have this life of no adventure. So this is your adventure. You have an enemy. Win. Yes? Yes. Excellent. Okay, so that's one option. Another option is don't make the drowsiness into an enemy. No need to fight. Yes? Instead, notice how pleasant it is. Isn't it pleasant? You're sitting here and your body just relaxes. Isn't that nice? Feels good, doesn't it?
It feels good when I'm like in bed doing it, but...
Right. So learn how to feel good while you're sitting doing it. So what you'll find is typically as you become drowsy, two experiences arise at the same time, and when they arise together, a certain direction becomes very compelling. So one experience is this icky, tight, wheedling sensation in your eyes and your face and sometimes your shoulders and your back, and it's just sort of pulling you down and you feel like, oh, this is so uncomfortable. And the other one is a global relaxation in your body, and so you feel like you're being punished for keeping your eyes open and staying upright, and also you're being rewarded for just giving in to this. And it's awful. And you're trying to push yourself into the discomfort and away from the pleasure by staying awake, and you're just like, why can't I just give into this, right? So give into it. Feel relaxed. Notice how the drowsiness, as if it forces, it injects relaxation through your body. Well, that's good. People want to relax when they meditate. People meditate to relax. So you're getting that good thing. You're getting the good thing, the relaxation. Take it, okay? But so good news, you can give in to the relaxation. But here's the bad news. If you also give in to this, no, you know how it feels? This stuff, nah. If you let that happen, then you lose consciousness. If you don't keep this alive and awake, then you lose consciousness. But the moment you lose consciousness, you lose the pleasure of relaxation. But you want the pleasure of relaxation, so you have to stay awake to feel happy in the deep relaxation. So these waves of relaxation come through you, and the more awake and aware you are, the more deeply you feel that happiness. Okay? So you work on staying and letting the relaxation directly relax this tension. You see? Rather than falling asleep to avoid it, instead you stay awake and you let the relaxation move through your face and your shoulders and your back, and you let it relax all of that. And then you start to experience the relaxation more and more deeply. And the more deeply you experience it, the more you want to be present for it, because it's pleasant. Yes? But you discover how to be awake and aware while also being relaxed. And that's a skill that most of us don't know how to do. Most of us include tension in awareness. So if I say concentrate on something, we immediately use tension to achieve that. We often don't know any other way to concentrate. Concentration means get tight. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I say concentrate on your breath, and you immediately try to concentrate on your breath. I say concentrate on the floor. You immediately try to concentrate on the floor. As I said, that's fighting. Nothing wrong with fighting. Fight. Or don't fight. And discover it's as if the relaxation is pulling my attention. You understand? I don't have to make myself concentrate. It's pleasant. I can just let myself concentrate on it because it's pleasant. You see? And by doing that, it encourages you to be more and more aware, more and more attentive, more and more awake as you go deeper into these waves of relaxation. Okay? Now, it may be the case as you learn to do this that you have to ride a kind of a line of drowsiness. You let yourself get drowsy. Sometimes you fall asleep, but then you wake up, and then you get a little tight around it, and then you fall asleep again. So you're trying to find a balance point, and it's okay if you fall one way or the other sometimes. Does that make sense? You have to give yourself the chance to fail, or else you'll never move forward at all. So it's okay. Sometimes you fall asleep a little bit. No problem. You're not allowed to lie down. Well, I guess he's not allowed to lie down. And so you won't fall asleep. It'll wake you up. That's the nice thing about sitting. It wakes you up. So you'll get another chance to discover how to more and more deeply experience the relaxation until you discover that you can experience the relaxation more fully, and it's more pleasurable by being awake than by falling asleep. And then it's easy. Then you're naturally drawn toward wakefulness rather than drowsiness. Okay? So those are two, the fight and the don't fight strategies can both be helpful for overcoming this. Anything else on that? No. So just try it now. There's nothing to do now but give it a try. And we'll see what actually happens, and then we can make adjustments depending on which of these has worked better for you. Very good.